Hey, brassfacts here. The civilian night vision laser aiming market is frankly a sham. Yeah, there's really nothing on the market right now that has both a powerful illuminator, is extremely durable, and doesn't cost more than the entire rest of your rifle. The reason for this is the cheapest and most effective way to get an illuminator on a laser aiming module is to buy a diffused laser type, but of all things, the Food and Drug Administration prevents those full power lasers from being sold to civilians, so we have to buy neutered variants. There's two ways around this: crime, or buying something with a V-cell emitter, which for some reason bypasses FDA limitations. But all of these are fairly new, and all seemingly are crammed in high-end lasers meant for the military market, so we're back at square one. Lasers that cost more than your entire rifle several times over. Now, I have no problem with spending money for a quality product, but a lot of times these also have some inherent issues. Recently, us night vision addicts have looked towards other sources for our laser aiming module needs. China! One of the most promising PRC eye surgery devices is the Laserspeed, lasers. Turns out the FDA doesn't give a shit if you own a full power laser, so if a company does not care and is overseas, we have our in. We saw this initially with the Russian Persts, but those are harder to come by for some reason.
I didn't want to drop a cool $2,000 on Chinese laser aiming modules, so I had Laserspeed send me the what the fuck is this called? I had Laserspeed send me the FL5, and then, as you'll see afterwards, they sent me the newer M3. The FL5 has 2,000 rounds, just shy of 2,000 rounds of 5.56 through it, mostly on the Saber, and the the M3 got roughly about 1,100 rounds. 600 of it was through a SCAR H, so 308. That puts us at almost $1,500 of ammo for just this review. So that's a lot of ammo, and that would be a lot of ammo that I had spent money on if I didn't have my sponsor Eclipse Armory, who actually sponsored and paid for the majority of that 308 ammo for not only this, but other reviews. So thank you, Eclipse Armory. Go ahead and check them out. So they're just getting started, so their selection might be a little slim, but the next time you're looking to go buy ammo, consider checking out, and if their price is right and they have what you want, consider buying through them. When you buy from them, you support from them, which enables them to support me, and we can keep this whole train going. I am completely miserable. There's so many flies!
The FL5 is the all-in-one module. It's got a flashlight, vis laser, IR laser, and an illuminator. It's got the whole shebang. The stuff we care about, the IR components, are pushing around 20 milliwatts. In practice, it functions as a similar analog to the older full-power lasers, like the PEQ-15, the Steiner A2, and whatever you can find on TaxSwap. All of these obviously blow civilian laser-based illuminators out of the water. Perfectly serviceable, and in fact, actually a lot cleaner and well-defined compared to ancient gray market full-power units. Admittedly, at first, I thought the laser-based flashlight combo units were a bit silly at first. These all-in-one units don't really weigh significantly less than a standard MFAL paired with a quality white light. Taking this FL5, for example, it's about 11 ounces compared to a PEQ-15 with a Surefire M600 at about 12.3 ounces. That is about 1 ounce for a significantly more powerful, dedicated white light. The FL5 light is a measly 300 to 500 lumens or so, and very much all flood. However, the more I use the FL5, the more I really appreciate its functionality here. Is it for every rifle? No. But if we take the logical leap that not every gun probably needs a Battlefield 4 flashlight on it, especially when ergonomics in space is a premium, the FL5 does begin to make a case for itself. It also takes a step further over the functionally similar Holosun LE321, that's the Holosun with the flashlight bolted to it, with a triple tap override for the white light. So you actually preserve the functionality of having an emergency white light while still being on the IR settings. So if you're doing nod stuff and you're like, oh shit, I need white light right now, triple tap, boom, you have a white light. I'll give it a couple minus points because the white light override is strobe only, and the triple tap functionality takes quite some time to activate, about 3/4 of a second. In practice, you're really just going to mash the fire button until the white light comes on, and then you go ahead and do your white light things. All of these, the FL5 and the M3, come with a proprietary tape switch, but they're worse versions of those OG Surefire tape switches that were meant to be wrapped around a broom handle, and more importantly, they're proprietary, so no Surefire switches here. I function test mine, and then I lost it in the couch mattress. The FL5 uses an 18650 battery in theory, but I just use CR123s because I couldn't actually fit an 18650 in here. Turns out it only accepts unprotected 18650s, which I don't have any of. Now the manual doesn't state you should use CR123s, but if it fits, it ships, and the manual also doesn't mention the 18650s either, so who knows. Thus far, this unit's actually been fairly promising. You're not going to put it on every rifle, but this functionality really makes sense in a lot of stuff like PDWs or smaller ARs, like maybe a night gun. Unfortunately, the user interface is where the price point of this thing really becomes apparent. The FL5 uses these dorsal turn dials, sort of like a PEQ-15, but it has them configured in a D-ball A2 style. One of them manages power, one of them manages mode. So you can set it to whatever mode you want and then turn it on or off based off of the power mode. Unfortunately, the detents on these things are very flimsy and feel like complete shit. And by feel like shit, I mean they are shit. Yikes. If you also don't apply force normal to the unit, the whole thing basically binds up. This also includes the illuminator spin dial on the rear. You can't just thumb it for rapid adjust, you must come from behind and grab the whole thing and rotate it. Otherwise it'll bind up and won't move at all. In terms of the spin dial that fell off, there's a little screw here that I think you need to back off such that you can re-screw it back in and like match it to the witness mark. But I think it's actually epoxied in because I can't get it to go loose anymore, thus I can't get this dial back on. Unfortunately, this poor quality extends to the other moving parts on this thing. The unit has external, unprotected, unlocked zeroing turrets. When this thing was new, the detents on these things were borderline. Now, they've completely worn out. It takes almost no force to spin. And because this device regularly brushes up against gear, travel bags, the issue seems to be getting worse with time. And obviously this is a complete disaster because these things handle the zeroing of the unit, so it's unzeroing itself regularly. At this point, it's probably time to mention that warranty. The Laserspeed units have a 18-month warranty. Outside of the warranty, you're going to be paying out of pocket for repair and shipping. Which, remember, this thing's going to China, so it's going to be a tad more expensive. I tried to warranty this one with a separate email to see how it would work, but they figured out really quickly that it was me, so I wasn't able to utilize the warranty. So while the FL5 is good, unrestricted performance, decent weight actually, and the 6061 aluminum can handle most of what I throw at, rain, sleet, more snow, and just shy of 2,000 rounds, and a couple falls for good measure, it fundamentally shit the bed on all the external parts and thus is unsuited, in my opinion, for even basic usage. Bummer. After talking to Laserspeed, or at least my contact there, I saw some CGI renderings of the new FL5, which has capped turrets. Or it seems like they're near or soon to produce these new variants, which does solve some of the main issues, the turrets.
Hold up, bum, 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 bum.
The story keeps going though, because after breaking the FL5, Laserspeed sent me the newer version of the M3. Basically, it's a Chinese PEQ-15 laser, IR illuminator, and that's it. The FL5 frankly feels like it was built by a different company. Right out of the gate, the dials, which have been moved aft like the D-ball, just present significantly better. They don't bind, they have good strong detents, they don't wobble, and they don't rip off after 2,000 rounds. In fact, if I'm being honest, these are probably better dials feels-wise over the Snyder D-ball series that it mimics. The dials have the exact same functionality as the FL5. One for power, one where you choose your mode, including for some reason on the far right mode is a strobe, which I don't think that should be there. I think the far right mode should be your most relevant mode, which happens to be IR plus illuminator. Your far left mode should be the vis laser, but minor gripe. The turrets are finally capped, but also beefed up internally with a much stronger detent. We sadly lose the rear focus adjustment, simply because there's no more room, and instead get a smooth dial up front, once again D-ball or PEQ style. Downrange performance, it's a hair stronger than the FL5, which itself is roughly on par with the standard full power PEQ-15, no complaints there. When you get one of these in hand, you're going to notice, it's a big boy. Fortunately, most of that size is girth, not height, so it hides the size decently well, sitting lower on the rail compared to its Chinese brother, the Holosun LS321. This thing is basically at PLC size with a D2 weight at 12.5 ounces. It's extremely heavy in the realm of MFALs, with basically everything else coming in at about 8 ounces. But considering the price point at $900 hairs and the overbuilt feeling nature of it, it might just be part of the territory with this being an upper end budget item. And I'll take 4 ounces over dials plopping out any day. Overall, the M3 just feels better, even with this shit coating on it. But that's where we're going to need to get into this coating. Don't buy the matte tan one. It's got some kind of coating on it that it's fine for its price point, but it looks like they coated all of the parts with this and then assembled it, which seriously has gummed up the QD mechanism, making it the biggest pain in the ass to properly adjust as the nut binds on it.
Alright, I'm going to do my best to try to explain this situation, but here is your standard QD mount. Pull the lever back, and that unlocks the QD. You put it on your rifle, and then you lock it. There's 2 issues with this. For starters, this entire thing is covered in this paint. It's certainly stronger than a rattle can type, application, but it's still weak enough that it's completely gumming up the works back here. This is a big aspect. This is not a very high tolerance QD mount, so you really have to fine tune it via this adjustment screw over here. The areas over here are covered in this paint. The issue with that is, for example, let's say we want to tighten it a bunch, and it'll sit like this. And if you put it on like this, you'll lock it down, it'll be good, and then under recoil, it will eventually, it'll eventually click in and settle, and your entire thing is going to lose 0. The issue, however, is that you'll lock it in like this, and over time, the recoil will actually loosen the mechanism back to this point right here. And you can even see that it wants to go to that specific position because there is a burn mark right there. So very often we would tighten it all the way down to this position, we would shoot a bunch, and then the laser would lose 0 as this thing backed out to this position, and then it'd be very slightly wobbly on the gun, but that's enough to cause, 0 shift. So what you end up having to do, you want to tighten it in such a way that it is very difficult to close this, and as soon as it locks, it can't go any further, right? So you want it tightened such that it locks in this awkward position where it's slightly off to the side. Not when it's naturally in this position, where you have the full flat surface pressing against the rail.
The fact that this mount system isn't fully engaging presents a number of issues. For starters, a much smaller subsection of the lever that's meant to pin the mounting mechanism is now in contact with the mounting mechanism, concentrating the force on a much smaller area. If you look carefully, you can actually see some of the metal has bent away at that specific contact area. This means the unit is much more likely to lose 0 under long-term recoil cycles, so, like 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 rounds, and more importantly, when the unit takes a bash or impact, as in you drop the whole thing. Time to go into detour land, so bear with me here. Recently, my maul took a notable impact when I almost fell over after trying to ford my dog across a river in full kit with a 50-pound bag. Later, confirmation revealed that the laser indeed had shifted a significant amount. This was concerning. I then took out a bunch of my other lasers and put them on a singular rail, bashed them against my wooden bed, and lo and behold, all of them would exhibit some 0 shift. This is with what I would consider a reasonable, but not excessive bash, about the force of hammering a nail. Some of them, like the D-Ball A2, resisted about 2 to 3 good bashes before I found the angle that shifted it massively. The maul moved more readily than the D-Ball A2, and the M3 from Laserspeed moved significantly more and most of all. There's a reason I strongly recommend Viz lasers on M-Files in general. You need to be able to confirm that your 0 has held after a blunt impact, because lasers kind of just suck at holding 0, and this last week of testing kind of really confirmed that. This isn't my idea, by the way. I stole that from Chuck Pressburg, who has noted similar trends in his time in the military, and would include lasing a target at like 200 yards to confirm through the optic that the thing had indeed held 0, and that was part of his pre-flight checks before touching off. You should probably do the same. I'm not saying this is a full pass on the M3, but it's more so to contextualize my issues with it. It's not necessarily an issue that this thing loses 0 on notable blunt impacts. As we established, it kind of happens to all of them. It's more so that it occurs with a much lower threshold of force, simply due to the design of the QD mount, which does not seem up to the task, even if you figure out the jank aspects I mentioned earlier. The original cross-built FL5 design is far more elegant. While some of these issues would obviously be rectified by simply just not having the locking mechanism covered in tan goop, that defense only goes so far because I think most of it's actually worn away.
God, what a horror show. Fuck, Luke, holy fuck, dude.
All right, so the part that matters. Should you buy these? The FL5? No, it broke. Fuck, there goes my microphone. The M3, okay, that's a little bit more compelling. The issues with the QD are frankly extremely annoying and will probably present the biggest go, no go for if you want to buy this unit or not. So be sure to watch that section and think on it thoroughly. The price tag of $1,000 also means that despite this being a Chinese import laser, we can actually begin to demand a certain level of refinement. For those that want a no questions asked, maybe first time laser, the Holosun LS321 honestly is a little better. It's frankly just a little more robustly built, has a functional QD, and has access to crane plugs allowing you to use all your little doohickeys. It's just a much more comfy buy, despite being civilian powered. The Steiner 9007, assuming you can find one of them, does lack a visible laser, but similarly too comes in at a roughly $700, $800 price point, and it's just a little bit more robust on the mount front. If you want to spend a little bit, it's in my ear. The Steiner D2 offers a much more tested experience. The only cost is roughly about $500 to $600. Having to buy from Steiner, and the fact that you have to put a post-term baby on the front of your gun. So if that's unacceptable to you, and the full power requirements is in fact a mandatory requirement, well then maybe the M3 begins to make a case for itself. It swoops in at around $900, which puts it right in the middle of this category, kind of being a very compelling option. It's not perfect, it's got faults, the weight, the size, and the QD issues that I mentioned. However, for full power performance, it's probably one of the more durable options coming in at a reasonable price point. I think with a better QD or just completely nixing the QD and using a crossbolt type system honestly could do a lot to really push this product in the forefront. Regardless, that's been my Laserspeed review. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one as I get completely eviscerated by mosquitoes for your enjoyment. So if you want to support the channel and the skincare that I need to do after this, consider heading over to Subscribestar, where you transfer money from your wallet to my bank account and you help keep this complete disaster going. So I'd appreciate that. You also get access to something where me and Hop occasionally do a podcast, and we store the archives there, and you can get access to all of them. Regardless, thanks for watching. I need to get the fuck out of here. You have 3 MX?
I've got real ones, not scar ones.
Just fucking load it with stripper clips or something.
Wow, 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 say it ain't Doge. Just kidding, it's totally Doge. Say it ain't Doge. Oh, hello, Doge. Come here, come here, come here.